Welcome back for the second part of our lesson, which is the cell structure. In the first part, we had looked at the structure of animal and plant cell, and now in this lesson, we're going to look at the parts of the cell and their functions. We're going to look at function of different parts of the cell, which we consider as organelles. That's why we say cell organelles on the top of the heading there. We're going to look at each part and the role it performs in the cell. And we're going to start with the cell wall. We said the cell wall is the structure that is only found in plant cell and it is not in the animal cell. And cell wall is made up of cellulose. Is made up of cellulose. Cellulose is a non-living component of the plant cell, and it is the structure that makes the plant cell to appear rigid or tough, and that gives the cell its shape. So we're going to look at the functions of the cell wall in the plant cell. One of the functions we can talk about is it gives the cell its shape. The cell its shape. So cell wall being rigid and tough, it is able to define the shape of the cell. It gives the shape of the plant cell, or it makes the plant cell to appear in definite shape, which is one of the functions of the cell wall. Secondly, it being tough, it protects the inner parts of the cell, because inside the cell there are a number of structures: the nucleus, the cytoplasm, and other important organelles which are inside. All these are protected by the cell wall, which is the rigid. Then it also allows movement of substances or materials in and out of. Allow movement of materials in and out of the cell. The cell has the components. A lot of metabolic processes take place inside the cell, and there are substances which continuously move in and out of the cell. All these they pass through the cell wall, and those that moves in and those that comes out. So it means the cell wall allows substances to move in and out of the cell. Then it also gives mechanical support for the cell, which is same as the protection or protection of the inner parts of the cell. Then secondly, we have to look at the cell membrane. Cell membrane is found in both plant and animal cell, and it is the living part of the cell. This is the living part of the cell. This is the living part of the cell. Which plays an important role in both plant and animal cell. When we look at the functions of the cell membrane, it shares some similar functions with the cell wall. And one of the basic functions that we can talk about here, we are looking at also the movement of materials in and out of the cell. So it means the cell membrane allows movement of materials in and out of the cell. Why? Because the cell membrane here is having some pores, some tiny holes through which the substances can move in and out. When we look at the properties of the cell membrane, it has small pores, and these pores allows movement of substances in and out of the cell, which is one of the basic functions of the cell membrane. It somehow also regulates the shape of the cell. It regulates the shape of the cell. So it means how the cell will appear it depends on also the structure of the cell membrane. So it gives the cell its shape, or it regulates the shape of the cell. It regulates the shape here. Sorry, we have regulate the shape of the cell, which is one of the functions of the cell membrane here. Cell membrane here also play another important role, which is offering of protections to the inner parts of the cell by enclosing the other organelles like cytoplasm, keeping them in the space. So it means it also protects the inner part of the cell, the inner part of the cell. That's what we're saying. It plays some functions which are similar to that one of the cell wall. It means cell wall is only found in the plant cell, but in the animal cell, they have cell membrane, and cell membrane is also there in the plant cell. So it plays similar functions to that one of the cell wall. Then it protects the inner part of the cell. Then it also, we had talked about this one earlier, it regulates the movement of materials in and out of the cell, which are some of the basic functions of the cell membrane. Then we have the nucleus. The nucleus. The nucleus of the cell here is made up of the membrane, or is surrounded by membrane. It is surrounded by membrane known as nuclear membrane, But nuclear plays a number of functions also in the cell. One of the major roles of the nucleus is it controls the activities of the cell. It means nucleus is like brain of the cell. So it means it decides which activity takes place in the cell. So it means it controls the activities of the cell, controls cell activities, controls cell activities, which is one of its main functions. We can also say the nucleus here also controls cell division. The process of cell division starts from the nucleus and later on spread to the other parts of the cell. So the initial stage of cell division starts from the nucleus. So in that regard, so the nucleus also control the cell division process. Then nucleus also plays an active role in protein synthesis. It plays an active role in protein synthesis. So nucleus also participates in the process of protein formation in the cell, which is also one of its functions. Now we had said that when we look at the cell under electron microscope, we can be able to see the nuclear membrane. And now let us also summarize with the functions of the nuclear membrane. Functions of nuclear membrane. Nuclear membrane also play some functions within the cell. One of the functions is it binds the nucleus of the cell. It binds the nucleus of the cell. The nucleus of the cell. So it means keeping the nucleus of the cell together, or it surrounds the nucleus of the cell to keep it together, which is one of the functions of the nuclear membrane. It binds the nucleus of the cell, so which is one of the important functions, and it separates the nuclear plasma from the cytoplasm of the cell. It separates separates the nuclear plasma from the cytoplasm of the cell. From the cytoplasm of the cell. Cytoplasm of the cell. So it means within the cell there is the liquid component of the nuclear that we call the nuclear plasma, and there is also the liquid component of the cell, which is called the cell cytoplasm. So the nuclear membrane separates the two. It keeps the nuclear plasma separate from the cytoplasm of the cell, which is also one of the important roles or functions of the nuclear membrane, where I said it separates the nuclear plasma of the cell from the cytoplasm of the cell, which is one of the important component or part of the cell. Then we can also talk about cell vacuum. Cell vacuum. Cell vacuum is found both in plant and animal cell. The vacuum of the animal cell is small and temporary, but for the plant cell it is large and permanent. So cell vacuum is a fluid-filled structure surrounded by a membrane known as a tonoplast. Now we're saying this cell vacuum here plays an important role in the cell, but we're saying cell vacuum is a fluid-filled structure surrounded by a membrane known as tonoplast. A membrane known as tonoplast in plant cell. So the vacuole of the plant cell is large and it is surrounded by a membrane known as tonoplast. But what is the function of this cell vacuole here? When you look at the vacuole of the cell, it plays a number of functions, just like any other organelle of the cell. One of the importance of the cell vacuole is it stores waste materials of the cell. It stores waste materials of the cell. So it means we say that within the cell there are a number of metabolic activities that take place. So these metabolic processes, they produce waste products and which the plant is supposed to eliminate. So these waste products they are first stored temporarily within the vacuole of the cell, which is one of the main functions of vacuole of the cell. Secondly, it is a temporary food storage. It stores food, especially the vacuole of the plant cell. It is large and it temporarily stores food for the plant, especially after the photosynthesis. The food can be temporarily stored in the vacuole before it being disseminated to different parts of the cell for utilization, which of the plant for utilization, which is one of the importance of the vacuole of the cell. Lastly, we can say the vacuole also gives shape to the cell, because when the cell vacuole takes in more water, it expands and becomes hard and rigid, which also gives the shape of the plant cell, especially the large vacuole in the plant cell, which is one of the importance of the cell vacuole. Then we have